Hello fellow fencers, today I'm going to give you my personal list of why I think that you should get into historical fencing.
Shall find me a grave man.
You ready, gentlemen?
So there are of course tons of reasons why you should start doing historical fencing, and a lot of them are personal to just you, but I think that this list will cover some of the most important aspects of why people in general get into historical fencing. So let me get started. So the first reason why I think that you should get into historical fencing is that it's a great way of getting in touch with history. By just opening a book, these wonderful stories are unraveling, not just the manuscripts themselves, but all the stories of people who fought in wars, fought in duels, fought for power in back alleys of European cities or on the countryside, defending against robbers, etc. So it's just a wonderful thing to pick up these books and open them and see these stories, or even just in the margins, these names that pop out, you know, of someone who trained fencing 500 years ago, and you're getting to be part of that lineage. You know, you're training the same things, you're trying to train at least the same things as they did. And it's a wonderful thing that you can have this study and then you can sort of live that experience that they did, share that experience with them. A lot of fencers get this notion from the start. That's one of the allures, but then they sort of seem to forget it. It becomes about gear, it becomes about Excel sheets, it becomes about ranking and competitions and rule sets and all of that. But one of the main points why we get into it is these fantastic arts and the stories of the people who trained them and invented them also, of course. So that's my reason number one, getting in touch with history and becoming another link in that chain of fencers going through time. My second reason why I think that you should get into historical fencing is personal development. There's something there with all martial arts, I think. Well, anything that you take seriously, you train it seriously, is going to lead to personal development of some sort. But martial arts are a little bit special because they are going to be humbling to you, because you're fencing, there's no team to rely on. You're fighting another opponent who is there to fight on equal terms and who will try to oppose you best at their ability. So there will come times when you lose. There will come times when you don't live up to your own expectations or the expectations possibly of those around you. So you will be humbled by it, and that in itself is great. But it also means that if you continue to train and you set up goals for yourself, you take it seriously, you're going to overcome those obstacles and you're going to learn how to become better. Personal development, in short. And I think this is really important, and possibly even more so for young people. And especially if you're having some troubles in your life and you're feeling disaffected and maybe not connected to society and you don't know what to do with yourself. Because if you can take one aspect of your life, namely training, and you learn how to overcome obstacles, you set up goals and you take control of that part in your life, even if everything else is chaos, that little thing is organized. That's something which you can handle, you can manage that, and you can overcome it, and it's up to you, and you succeed in it. That's a very important lesson, and you can take that lesson with you to all other parts of your life, your work, your relationships, and all of that. Really, it's a lesson about taking responsibility, and I think all martial arts are good for that. But historical fencing is my chosen martial art, and I think a lot of people who get into historical martial arts are also a special type who may not have been getting involved with other types of sports. So I think personal development is a very good reason to get into historical European martial arts. And that leads me to my third reason, which is physical fitness and health. As I mentioned, I think a lot of people who get into historical European martial arts are not necessarily interested in other sports to begin with. It's sort of a side effect of being a little bit nerdy, perhaps, or having an historical interest, that it leads to training. So it reaches a certain group of people who would otherwise not be so interested in moving. And as a parent myself, this is also something which is very important to me and close to my heart. Getting kids to move is really important. We're fighting all of these other sort of interests, screens, screen times, video games, TV, movies, and all of that. And I think historical fencing has a very special allure to a lot of these kids. So you can get them started in this, even if they're not interested in sports in general. And I can't even tell you how many times I've met people who've never trained in their life and they start historical fencing, and it leads to other types of training like weightlifting and getting fit in general. And they come in, these people, with no coordination. They can hardly even, run and coordinate their arms and legs. And after a few years of training, they're physical specimens, six pack and packing on muscles and learning about how to eat properly and taking care of themselves. So that's really, really good. And we're reaching people who are not necessarily reached by other sports. So that's a really, really good reason for getting into historical fencing. You might actually find a passion which is also very healthy for you. So that brings me to the fourth reason why I think you should be doing historical fencing, and that's mental fitness and mental health. There are several studies, I'm sure you're aware, that shows that physical training is very beneficial to combat depression and all of that. A lot of the times that when you're out of shape, it's an expression of that you're not feeling very well in general. And if you then start moving, it's a very concrete way of starting to get on a positive path forward. So it leads to mental health benefits. I'm not giving you medical advice here, I'm just saying what I've learned myself and how I feel about it. So, but mental fitness is a little bit more than just mental health. It's also about who you are and what you're striving for as a person. And that has to do with values, or in the words of our ancestors, cardinal virtues. So for me, the cardinal virtues are sort of eternal wisdoms handed down to us from the people who came before us. And they very well encompass what a good person should be and how you can become useful to others. So if we integrate those values and virtues into our culture in historical fencing, it means that we're building people up. Fencers become more well-rounded. And that's a very positive thing, because it becomes sort of a spiral, a positive spiral, where we're training people to feel better about themselves. They're then learning to take responsibility, and that responsibility spills over to a positive effect on all of us, and we're building a positive community. So in short, it's a positive spiral. So mental health, mental fitness, are a really good reason to start historical fencing, and also good advice to all trainers out there to promote these virtues. The fifth reason why I think that a lot of people get into historical fencing, and if you're not already, this is probably one of the reasons that you're thinking about it, is that the sword is elegant. The sword represents a lot of things. It has this sort of grip on our souls because it represents chivalry and manliness and courage and justice and all these things. Also, it represents personal things for a lot of people that are a bit harder to put your finger on. What does it feel like to pick up a sword? And the first time you do it, you're like, all right, so this is a sword, and you just want to swing it. You want to try it out, but you're a bit hesitant, and it's you don't have full control over it, and it becomes a little bit like a boy putting on a suit that's a little bit too big. You have to grow into it. You have to become a man to wear the suit, but it's a two-way streak. The suit also makes you a little bit, sets the bar for you to strive for that. So the same with the sword. You know, what would it be like to be one of those people who can just pick up a sword and feels natural to them, and they've trained a lot and is sort of one with the sword. That's a certain aspect of it, because when you see a person who's really, you know, one with the sword and they're moving elegantly with it, that's all inspiring and inspirational for a lot of people, I think. So the fifth reason is the sword is elegant. It's simply a very cool thing. So that was my personal list of the 5 reasons that I think that you should get into historical fencing and what you'll get out of it. If you have your own reasons why you got into fencing or why you're thinking about it, please write it in the comments. Thank you for listening, and fence well. Did you like that video? I hope that you did, and if so, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. We also have a Patreon where you can support us and a Facebook page where you can take part in discussions. That's it for now. Take care and fence well.